Dr. Ande, this is great. You know, of course, I had read the essay that you sent me, so I had some background to what you spoke about. But of course, the way that you sort of, explained it further helped me appreciate what you had in that essay much better. Now, I will stay with polling for a while, but like we have said, we will want to get into an even wider area of, does statistics work towards predicting human outcomes in general? Now, the first one I'm going to pick up is this thing that you said about 4,000 is a very, very good sample size to predict the behavior of a population. And I really want to dwell on that a bit, because I think what is missed sometimes in this 4,000 being representative, where you can get a really high accuracy, is that by population we mean different things at different time, in the sense that you can theoretically use 4,000 to represent the entire country and use 4,000 for India's 125 crore people, but that will give you a set of things which are not necessarily very usable. So therefore, when we are talking population, we have to be careful about actually defining what that population means.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so if you are talking about a TRP survey, audience survey, obviously we are talking about people who have a television at home. If we go and do 4,000 survey and many of them don't have television at home, then it is useless. So for any survey or the starting point is who is your target population that you are trying. So recently someone was talking to me about a survey about attitude toward financial investments. So once again, picking random population is useless, because if half of them they don't have money to survive, where are they going to invest? So what is the point of asking them this? So defining a proper frame of what is the target population for your study, that is the first step.
And in fact, in that context, I have this question. You drew a very careful difference between random and arbitrary.
Yeah.
And I think we need to go back to that a bit. Now, in the actual paper that sort of represented some sense the background to this, you spoke of the fact that you use electoral rolls.
Yeah.
And you use electoral rolls in a particular way. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So, how we achieve this so-called random sample is the following. So all this depends on how is the master data organized. Okay? So we don't have one register of all voters in the country. Okay? So there are each state, firstly the country has states, each state has an electoral officer, then each state will have constituencies, each constituency will have polling booths, and then a polling booth there is a voters list. They are trying to integrate electronic and so on and so forth, but still it is organized at this level. Now maybe at a state a master list may be available, I don't know. But given the state it was when we started, and I think it is working well, so we are continuing with that. So we first pick randomly polling booths within the constituency within the state. Then we look at polling booths, pick polling booths randomly, then get hold of voters list, and then pick the voters randomly. Now even here, how are these lists arranged? If each of these lists were alphabetical, I will just draw that. If I want to draw 30 from a list, I will draw 30 random numbers and draw them. But none of these lists is alphabetical. So firstly the constituency list is such that contiguous constituencies come together. Within a constituency, polling booths which are within a locality all come together. Typically when we go to vote, we would have seen that at one center there may be 8 or 9 polling booths, and their numbers will almost always be consecutive. Now given this, and the fact that generally a neighborhood there will be a similar socio-economic profile people living, so we want to reach as far as possible. Okay. So what we do is something which is called circular sampling or systematic sampling. So let's say I have decided I want 10 booths in this constituency. So I get a list of, let's say, 110 booths. So I pick a number between 1 and 11 at random, and if I pick 9, then I'll pick every 10th after. 9, 19, 99, 9, 19, 29, 39, etc. What this achieves is automatically you are spreading across the geographical region. So this is where understanding that what variation is present, what factors are there which explain the variation. So socio-economic background does explain variation. So you should try to spread across socio-economic. So this method. Even within a polling booth, one building will be together. If it's a huge building, then one floor will be together. So once again, circular cycle.
I'm going to stop you here for a moment because, now when we talk about this, the other problem is that the willingness to be surveyed is not common. And one of the issues that we have, in some of the kind of statistical work that we get involved in doing, and I will come to that in a minute, is that do you also build up systematic biases in any polling, because there are some places which are essentially impenetrable. Today, if you go into a gated society, and we have them all over the country, then your enumerator, the interviewer, can't get past the gate. So do you systematically therefore underrepresent that kind of population or that part of the population, and then how do you correct for it?
No, I think we try to take, CSDS has had an experience of doing this well before I got involved, from the 60s. They scaled up with the media support later. So they have ways and means. We send the people with all kinds of documents, and some incidents of denial of access may have happened, but that's not on a very big scale for us to worry. But if you are doing it for some other reason where this forms, the gated societies form a much larger chunk of the society than a general population which does, then it's a cause of worry.
And then are there things that statistics can do to actually correct for this?
Yeah, one simple thing is, let me explain it by another example, which is what we call applying weights. So if we see that a certain section by gender, let's say, just say male and female, okay, for whatever reason, we have the data in the census data that is 50-48, let's say, 52 male, 48 female. And in our sample, we have only got 60-40, suppose. It's not desirable. We'll try to pull up our enumerators to improve it next time, but what do we do this time? Okay. So then, we pretend that whatever is the percentage amongst 40, you inflate it as if it is 46 or 48, whatever is the desired percentage. This is called applying weights. But of course, if I have 90-10, then I will say that, sorry, I'm not going to touch this data. So there would be a limit to which we can apply weights, but beyond a certain threshold, this becomes meaningless. So these are statistical techniques.
And how do you have a priori weights? This gender example that you took was an easy one.
Yeah. So we look at this only where we have a priori weights, namely socio-economic variables. Otherwise, we won't even know that there is a lopsidedness in the sample.
Okay, great.
You see, if you do a survey in Bombay, you will get to hear about gated society. Sitting in Delhi, doing nationwide, so many things happen. We don't even know what all has happened.
Okay, I'm going to take this polling thing into an area which all of us saw on television both in 2008 and 12, which was the two American elections in recent times, which was this man who became a pop star, Nate Silver.
Yeah.
And his 538.com now, and I believe that site belongs to ESPN, and the man began apparently as a baseball fan.
Yes.
What does baseball have to do with polling?
No, not baseball, but I've read his book, what is it called? That became very popular. Forgetting the name just now. Yeah. But so baseball, he was a baseball fan, wanted to bet on baseball, and he did background analysis of all the games and data and so on, and that's how he developed his expertise in data. So baseball doesn't have to do anything with polling, but statistics is the common link, number one. Number two, as far as the two elections in a row, he has got it right. Well, don't expect that the next time he will have the same. Okay. He may have, I'm not ruling it out. So I will again say something which I had said on air one evening when that was kind of one of my best outings. This was in 2006. Maharashtra, no, not Maharashtra, Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Assam election, and we had got it right, and when many others and experts were not saying that this is what is going to happen. Assam, nobody was saying Congress is going to win, which we did say. Bengal, everybody knew CPM is winning, but when we were saying 235, even my CPM friends in Bengal were saying, "Arey yaar, ye to nahi ho sakta." Okay. Tamil Nadu people didn't have a clue who is winning, so we got it very good. So on such days, Rajdeep will get me on air at 9:30 and will praise me and his own channel, of course. So,
as a matter of fact,
that day, just one second.
Yeah.
So that day I said that, look, to win a cricket match, what is it that you need? Just being the better team doesn't ensure that you will win every cricket match. You have to ride on the luck. And I said, I better say this on a day that I have got it right rather than having to say this on a day where I get it wrong. So that is it. You see, statistics can ensure that generally you will be right, but you cannot ensure that you will always be right that level.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to segue into something because, the polling on television and polling on media, in fact, it started with the print media. One can very reasonably argue it has to do with the other half of the statistics which impacts the television station, which is this much abused term called TRPs, which is what Partho Dasgupta and Bark is all about. So you guys do one for the other.
Yeah, of course.
So now I want to come to that other, which is social measurement in general. I mean, audience measurement is a special case of social measurement. So I will probably come to audience measurement in specific terms, but let me talk about social measurement in general. A whole lot of arguments which have got even strong political color, cultural color, are predicated upon the use or otherwise of numbers. So, for instance, and I don't intend to offend anybody if this offends you, talk of the sudden need for us to improve the Hindu fertility and net reproductive rate is also a use or otherwise of statistics. So, where does the, let's say, reasonable and ethically fair usage of statistics begin and where does it end? I mean, is there some sense that you have of what is fair and what is not fair?
That's a very difficult question about you see, that society at every point of time has to decide what is fair and not fair. I mean, it's very difficult to say. So, I will just turn it again back to poll context. Sure. And last year, or 6 months before the Lok Sabha election, there was a lot of talk about banning elections, banning opinion polls. And I live in Chennai, and Mr. N, who knows me because of same reason as Mr. that having appeared together. So he held a discussion at his Hindu center and he invited me. And so the point is that legally it is very difficult to ban opinion poll. It will get struck down in the Supreme Court because if you can allow a reporter to say that he is just coming out of a meeting and the sense he got was that people at large were taken in by the speech or they were not taken in by the speech, whatever. The reporter may be saying it based on observations with 10 people. So as long as a reporter can say this, there is no way you can draw a law which will ban me from saying that I have talked to 1,000 people and this is what they have to say. In fact, Mr. N. Ram said that day that people have forgotten that I think in 99 or 98, somewhere around that time, they did try to make a certain law. Our election commission passed the diktat. It was not a legislation, but election commission. And Mr. Ram went to the Supreme Court and it was struck down.
Okay, there are two people right here in the front row. One is a social commentator, the other one is the editor of a very, very, with great distinction. So I'm going to ask Andy and Kumar to actually comment on one thing and perhaps pose him a few questions on that. There is a lot of talk that there is a feedback loop between what statistics is projected and what happens to behavior in the next round. So Andy and Kumar, I'm going to actually ask you to sort of trigger your thoughts from this about whether there is any sense in it or any truth in it, and perhaps pose a few queries to Dr. Karandikar.
This is not strictly related to opinion polls, but the general notion of polling. And I think it's much easier when it's A and B question, as you said. Have you found that it makes a difference if I know who the candidate is versus not knowing who the candidate is? Is there a party to candidate shift that happens, both at the local level and Lok Sabha?
I think it does happen, and based on whatever little analysis I have done with this, I think it happens more at the local level. At Lok Sabha level, it happens less, but it does happen. But it is a mixed up, that is what we call confounded with. That effect is confounded with the polls coming nearer, and as it is, people changing their opinion. So both these things matter. But we do ask people about questions such as, what is it that made up your mind? Is it the party? Is it the candidate? Is it the chief minister or the PM candidate, etc.? And a large number of people do say candidate is one of their main things for which they have voted. So it is a significant percentage. It's not the top percent, but significant.
I wanted to use that as a precursor to something that is of concern to people in marketing and so on, which is that it's not a simple choice.
Yes.
It is that even though I am talking to an anonymous interviewer who I may never meet again, and yet there is a sense of somehow revealing myself. Let me just take an example. And I'm always fascinated by the kind of surveys that are published by, let's say, an MTV against, let's say, I have nothing against MTV or regional publications in UP, but the amount of sexual activity among teenagers as revealed by MTV surveys suggests far higher hormonal levels than by the survey in the UP newspaper. So is there this thing about what is the kind of answer that I think, if I'm in Mumbai, I'm 17 years old, and the chap asks me, do you have a girlfriend? I cannot say no, even though I'm talking to a stranger who I'll never meet again. Yeah. So do you find that in several areas, it's a woman saying, will you allow your daughter to date? Places where the answer has some sort of judgment about me involved.
I think you made a very valid point, and if we have to ask these questions, we have to find ways and means of asking these questions. Again, I'll give the explanation with the polling context and the CSDS experience. So, what that found was that if you ask people, do you think this Prime Minister is good or bad, is he better than the previous one, people are happily passing judgment. Okay, are you happy with the government or not happy? But if you ask, whom are you going to vote for, there is going to be hesitation. Significant number of people, not everybody, but significant, the refusal rate for that question is going to be very high if you simply ask, whom are you going to vote? Why should I tell you? I don't want to answer, no comments, all these things. Okay. So this is where what question people are willing to answer and what they are not. And now what does CSDS methodology do? We print an old style ballot paper. Okay. In the olden days they used to print a colored one so that not being caught with because the actual one used to be white, so they used to print a colored one. And after people have answered all the questions, we will say that, okay, go in a corner and now tick your choice, fold it and come and put it back. Now we would be carrying just CSDS people would be carrying a cardboard box which is sealed with paper and with a slit. People are happy to do that. Okay. So it is the art of our psychology. What is it that people are willing to do? Okay. So depending on that, what survey, if you think it is sensitive, there are other statistical techniques also. There are anonymous survey, you toss a coin and based on that you give an answer yes or no. There are many such things. Okay. But here this is a very practical solution which CSDS had done, and it has been working very well.
Well, actually, the question and the comment is together. Because in Delhi elections, last 8 December when we got the results, most of the polls had not given enough number of seats to AAP. AAP was given maximum 16 seats and minimum 2, and they got 28. And invariably the question that CSDS and others also had put, who would you like to be Chief Minister? And many of them had said Arvind Kejriwal. And who would you like to be Prime Minister? They had said Narendra Modi. So So they were voting AAP or voting Modi, but the question was contradictory. How do you sort out the contradictions in the answers? Even today, Arvind Kejriwal is ahead in the race for all these voters saying that they want him to be CM, and yet BJP is ahead in terms of number of seats that they are getting. When you get the data, it is now different than number crunching.
Yeah.
You're not just doing number crunching. It becomes to quote Karl Marx, it becomes from quantity to quality. And so how does one transfer the quantity data into quality judgment or quality conclusion?
Okay. So first in Delhi, I was not 16, I was saying 24. I didn't say 28, but I had 22 or 26, etc. 22 I had said. So, now when it comes to judging the quality of the data, so I do look at the rest of the questions, but more from the point of view of coherence and whether is it completely somebody has sat inside and has manipulated the data, or is it actually real? Just to see that, get that sense. But finally, when it comes to seat prediction, I actually ignore their answers, who their PM choice is or CM choice is. I go by simply what they have answered as to whom the party they will vote for. That is what I do. Not others don't do that necessarily. There are people who say that they correct for lying factor. People are telling a lie. Now, if you think about it, if I were to think about it and do correct for lying, would be what? Then I would be using the other answers as a proxy to attribute a vote. Or you can go to an extreme that they have not even asked which party will you vote for. You just ask questions about, roti kapda makan, CM, PM, etc., and based on that you attribute a vote. For that you will need a kind of a consistent logical model for voting, and then we will run into all kinds of difficulties that you are saying. If he says Kejriwal for CM and Modi for PM, what do we attribute it to? But I don't do that at all, because all these things assume that the local candidate is meaningless, which in Bombay you would know that that is not the case. People may have been wanting Modi, but if they don't like the local candidate, they are not going to vote that. So I think it is contextual, and but on the other hand, if I had found that my data is saying 70% want Kejriwal as CM and only 20% are showing as AAP, then I will get worried. That then most likely it would be a transcribing error. After all, the survey is conducted by some, they write somewhere. It has happened, not this one, something else had happened, which we detected a transcribing error. So I am looking for such things more to ensure that there are no such transmission errors.
One small reference to my own career as reporter. I remember the first pollster I interviewed was F.D.W. Da Costa, who was the director of the Indian Institute of Public Opinion. And he had conducted that time, with less computer, no computer at all, a survey and concluded that Mrs. Gandhi's party, which was then known as ruling Congress party, will lose heavily, and the grand alliance of 4 parties will win. Finally, all of us know what happened was a huge victory for Mrs. Indira Gandhi
in the
1971 election. And then again, pollsters, came under suspicion was in 1984-85 election, when majority of the pollsters did not give Rajiv Gandhi as many seats as he got. I remember appearing myself with Pranay Roy's NDTV program. There was no private TV at that time, but he was given the contract by Doordarshan. At that time, even his figure did not cross 297, if I remember rightly, or something like that. Finally, Rajiv Gandhi got 414 seats. At that time, the opposition did not believe even the 297 seats, and they said that Rajiv Gandhi is only 3-month-old in prime ministership, and the sympathy wave is not there. But after the results came, 414 seats, everybody started saying that it was predictable because there was sympathy wave. So it was the post-wisdom that sympathy wave was actually interpreted after the results and not before the results. Nobody predicted. One small example which B.G. Varghese gives in his autobiography. He says that there was an anti-emergency mood, and so I was asked to contest from Kerala, B.G. Varghese, who recently died, and I contested and lost heavily. I think he lost deposits also. And yet he was contesting against Congress. There was anti-emergency mood. Congress won. and Biju Varghese lost. So I think these are some of the anomalies for taking a national kind of prediction.
I will pick something from that.
In fact, let me before that say that in India actually we don't vote as a nation. Each state votes separately.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't look at a nation as a whole. I look at each state
many populations.
My simple question was therefore to say that 4,000 is a reasonable sample for...
That's the point of defining
that's the only
population.
I'm not questioning because I know how long and how perfect you have been generally. I remember on that day, he was saying that 260 is definitely Modi is going to cross. And everybody was suspecting that. And 260, because RSS own figure was 226, and that's why they had started negotiating with Mamata and Jayalalitha. Their own internal poll had shown 226. And you were telling me that 260 to jayega hi, 270 tak bhi ja sakta hai. And he got 282. I think that's absolutely wonderful thing that you did. So that's how these suspicions begin.
I just want to introduce these slides which Rajiv has not shown, which is very modest. He's actually put out his track record. Not good only on 4 occasions. Fairly good on 8 occasions. These are all state polls, national polls, everything all put together for you to just go through it quickly. And extremely good on 16 occasions. So if you take 16 plus 8, 24 plus 8, 4 another, out of 28, on 16 occasions he's been extremely accurate no matter what kind of poll it is. So I just thought I'd put it out over there.
When you say not good, what do you mean? What is the
not
tolerance?
Good, not good is, one occasion is Karnataka where we even got the winning party wrong. Okay? So that certainly is. but that was to Karnataka 2008, which was a pollster's nightmare where Congress got more votes but less seats. So that is something which is very, very difficult to do based on the kind of mechanism that we have. Then other one not good was, I think, Punjab, I forget which year, where we said that our poll showed exactly same percentage of votes for BJP, Akali and Congress side. And there is nothing to interpret that. So we said too close to call. Sorry, we don't give any numbers, too close to call. All others, several others, not all, several others predicted a huge victory for BJP, Akali, and that is what happened. But that is a limitation. One occasion we can be off the mark. And I must say to the credit of Rajdeep, who was sponsoring from the print, from the television media, and Hindu, and Mr. Ram, who are the print partners, they didn't say that, no, you have to come up with some number, we have to say somebody has been. How can we have a program and say we can't say? You see? So I have to give them credit that even on that occasion, they didn't say, if this is what your numbers say, you say that. We will ridicule you, but you say what you have to say.
I'm going to pick something that, Kumar said, because it comes in your writings, which is that there is a statistical aspect to what all these things are about. But you also mentioned mathematical modeling.
Yeah.
Now, what is this mathematical modeling, and what does it have to do with the statistical work of the pollster?
Okay. So, you see, firstly, I don't really differentiate between mathematics and statistics. There is no hard boundary, number one. So, polling gives me a certain vote percentages. Though I may have voted South Bombay may have been a constituency where I have generated sample, but it may be 100 only. That's not good enough to tell me even what happens in South Bombay. So, what I do is, I look at a state-wise picture. So for Maharashtra, if I have to predict what is going to happen in the 48 seats in Maharashtra, what I would do is, I will look at the overall vote percentages across Maharashtra, and I will look at the vote percentages across sub-regions, so Greater Bombay area, Konkan area, Western Maharashtra, etc. And I will look at what happened to these in the previous election. Okay? And putting the two together, I will come up, so that is where the mathematical modeling aspect comes in. I come out with what I would call a predicted probability of win for each constituency and then add it together to give me seats. So it is so embarrassing that if I reveal my internal file, which will give predicted probability for each constituency, I am wrong on more than 60% of the location. But that is a limitation because my sample itself is so sparse that if somebody had wanted me to give this at that micro level, I should not do this exercise. So we have had difficulties with long back with India Today in 98. We had the contract said, and we had very clear thing that we are only going to give a state-wise picture, nationwide picture. And the editor, Mr. Prabhu Chawla, was very furious and he says, no, what do you mean? We have paid for it, we want everything that you have got. Okay? And eventually, after big debate, eventually we said, okay, we will reveal state picture, but you cannot print it, you cannot go on air with it. If you do it, we will disown it. But we will reveal to you and you alone. Because the sample is not good enough, size is not good enough to reveal at that micro level.
The state population, isn't that a bit of a contradiction? You talked about a sample of 4,000 to get it accurate, right?
Roughly, yeah.
For any population.
Roughly, yeah.
But we also now understand that there is no nationwide population. There are 28 or 29 state populations. So shouldn't you need 30 into 4,000?
Yeah, but it's...
So isn't that a contradiction in your sample?
No. Okay. So that is why what I would do is, I will, even if I have only 2,000 in a state, I will predict for the state, but I don't want to reveal my hand at the state level. That is the reason. So even with 4,000 in a state, it is a bit too little, but I don't even have that in some of the smaller states.
No, but then I don't get it, because we are saying that each state votes in a particular way.
Yeah.
So if I don't have a sample, it gives me an idea of how that state votes.
Yeah.
How do I get the national picture?
Okay. So, one of the things here, and that is where statistics is, that if you do an unbiased way of estimating each of these 30 states, the errors should cancel each other out and you will get a stable picture. Okay? And that is what went wrong as far as our prediction was concerned for Mr. Modi and BJP in the last election, because all errors went one way. Everything went one way, and that is where it went wrong. But otherwise, normally, what that expectation is, so it's art of feasible. I mean, if I say that unless you give me 1,20,000 sample, I will not do any polling, then they say, okay, don't do polling. So it's a, but if they tell me that you only with 5,000 you do nationwide, I will say thank you and no thank you. Fortunately, that is not my primary profession, so I can say no. Some others can't say no, even for that, right? Because if this is their only profession, they can't say no. I can afford. So I will say yes to at a level where I feel confident.
Is that around 20,000?
Nationwide 20,000 is absolute minimum, yes. 30 is better, but 20 nationwide is absolute.
Right at the back. Gentleman, right at the back. Thank you, Dr. Karandikar. My name is Puneet. I have 3 quick questions for you. One, do opinion polls influence the election outcomes? Is there a correlation of that you have studied for last so many years? Number one. Number two, why is there so much of secrecy about the raw data? Raw data, I think there's a lot of opinion polls being used in political slugfest. So why don't the pollsters share that raw data so it's up for scrutiny and transparency? What does the fraternity that you belong to think about it? And third, with the digital and mobile becoming more and more, online becoming more and more pervasive, is there a role technology is playing, and is it like something closer to what the real world looks like? So there are 3 questions. Okay. You can ignore all of them, or
no, I'll answer all of them.
Thank you.
I'll answer all of them. First one is about the feedback impact, right? So I do, based on whatever my experience, I do strongly believe that there is a feedback. There is a feedback loop. The next thing people ask me, then why are you associated with it? I said, well, even if I get away from it, polls are there to stay. Okay. So if you look back to the 84 poll that Kumar Ketkar talked about, it generated an 8-column headline. Okay. That was the only poll, it generated 8-column headline. Today, even when Hindu pays for it, they'll put only 3 column and bottom half. It won't be top half. And other publications will give you 1 column, 1 inch coverage. So, because there are so many doing it, the impact has reduced. Okay? So there is feedback loop forward. And why am I saying it so emphatically there is feedback? Because what we have sensed is that there is a general sense of identifying with the winner. So one of the questions we ask always is, recall for last year, 5 years ago, whom did you vote for? And what we have found interestingly is that irrespective of what is their opinion today, people seem to recall that they voted for the winner last time. So like Bengal, they wanted to, last election they wanted to throw out CPM lock, stock and barrel, and it's all Didi all over. The previous election actually CPM had got 52% vote. But in our sample, 70% people recalled that they had voted CPM. But now they don't want. You change it to Tamil Nadu, the same, DMK, ADMK. So that is how I conclude feedback. The second question was about?
The raw data, sharing raw data.
Sharing of raw data. Now it raises lots of questions. Okay, I think sharing completely raw data, even I will be hesitant. But I have no, I will have no issue of sharing it if all others are also sharing it, number one. But I do believe, see, raw data, you can take one aspect out of it and, just hammer it to death. Okay? So that is the problem in sharing raw data. On the other hand, it will be like, company, why it only says audited statement? Why not the entire books be open to public for auditing? Okay? On the other hand, I strongly believe that there should be a code of conduct done by the media together, that while I don't have to share the raw data with everybody, but if Kumar Ketkar wants to see my raw data, I should be obliged to share it with him. So some such kind of auditing, trailing, and in fact today they don't even disclose when was the survey done, who was the chief, who supervised the survey, who analyzed, nothing. So I think that there is a need for the collectively media to get together to come to some such audit trail. And the third question
technology,
was
use of technology.
You see, technology will be there, but it's as long as, let's say in US the surveys are done by phone-in survey. People generate random phone numbers and then they call and they get the responses quickly. In 3 hours you can generate a nationwide sample of 7,000, go on air. Even telephone penetration across the population is not that good even now. And that, I think, the telephone method, we are still some years away from that, some decades away from that is what I would think. I may be proven wrong, but today certainly it will not work.
No, I will debate that, Dr. Karandikar. A very interesting area that we work in, media research, is now there are research agencies.
Your population is those who are watching the TV. Whereas here
watching cinema. No, cinema. We actually now have models for predicting box office collections. So there are CATI interviews, the computer-aided telephone interviews, where we randomly sort of call, there is a caller, that auto dialer, and the auto dialer dials X number of numbers, and there are models in place now which are being able to directionally always get collections right and almost hit, the first week collection like within 10%. So it's beginning to happen. So CATI actually does work in India.
So I have a point there. By 2019, there will be 500 million smartphone users in India. By 2019, by next elections, there will be 500 million smartphone users in India. Each smartphone, each phone connection is verified. There's a person behind it. It's sort of taken care of. So it should give you some semblance of some reliability factor, some probability that you can highlight. It may not be as accurate as traditional world, but I do feel there might be a...
I have to see the actual outcome before I would buy that, because again it will be very lopsided. Most of the smartphone fellows are not going to go and vote. That's the problem.
Ajit,
thank you.
Thanks, Rajiv. Thanks. I have 3 comments and 1 question. First comment is about electoral rolls. You mentioned that you use and we've done some areas. Rolls is very large in some parts of some cities, and in fact, so that is a very defective starting point, and that's not your fault, of course, but the electoral rolls, for example, the winning margin sometimes can be 2 or 3%, but the errors of electoral rolls, that is type 1, type 2 error, people who are supposed to be there but are missing, or people who are there but are supposed to be not there, meaning people who go away, dead people, that's together about 40% in some parts of Ahmedabad. So that's a one cautionary comment about electoral rolls. Second is about some data that we have, that is, we did a nationwide survey on 543 constituencies and what do the voters want. A sample size of 250,000, by the way, much larger than 4. And one sample we did for Maharashtra state for 50,000, very large. But surprisingly, and we wanted to have, authenticity, in rural areas, the respondents were very happy to give their names and mobile numbers, so that our auditors could randomly call some of these guys to verify that the enumerator. So unlike urban guys who I won't tell you or something, these guys were more than willing to share a lot of things, sensitive. So this is second comment. Third comment is about Satta. There's a completely another avenue to predicting election results in India, which is the Satta Bazaar. Yeah. I wonder if the time has come to, give it some regular status, because they seem to get it. There's a lot of money riding on this betting. Anyway, now my question is it's related to the previous question just now. You see, nowadays we are doing this real-time traffic predictions and traffic reporting by passive interaction of the phone user with the GPS and satellite. They are not actually opting, they are not answering poll questions, they are not participating in any surveys, merely because they forgot to switch off their GPS. It's communicating and the speed at which the traffic is moving. Isn't there some passive approach to polling as well?
I think no, because even last 1 week there is so much of churn in public opinion. So I don't know what other such passive parameters one can pick up. I mean, I am skeptical. Let me put it this way. I can't rule it out, of course, but I am skeptical. I would have to wait to see that happen. But yeah, but I would be interested in talking to you about your survey about.
In fact, we'll be more than happy to share the raw data. But I just related to your British. I related to the British experience. You said the guy could almost predict who's going to vote for whom, and that's kind of passive.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think hopefully some part of Indian electorate are coming to a stage where some passive signal pickup can help your prediction process.
I just have one small point. One of the things that you had talked about is that swing factor, and getting into the socio-economic profile and finding a way to convert the votes to seats. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. This is going back to what is at the back of my mathematical model that is there. If I have only 250 voters from South Bombay, how do I get a sense of that? So the model rests on trying to assess swing for BJP Shiv Sena. That means what percentage of votes move. So based on the state-wise poll, we can get a state-wise swing. And based on region level where the numbers are reasonable, we can get region-wise swing. So our mathematical model that we do is that it's as if it's uniform across that whole region. So entire Bombay, 7 or 6, how many constituencies? 7. So entire 7 constituencies in Bombay, the swing is going to be the same. That is a kind of model which we use. And once I make, it's a very crude model, but once I make this model, all I have to estimate is the total percentage of votes in the 7 constituencies together this time. And I have their actual vote last time. And this model then lets me estimate their votes in each constituency, and then it goes into my probability model to estimate probability of winning. So this is the swing model, and at the back of it is a kind of calculation or assumption that the socio-economic profiles are not changing dramatically in a 5-year period. So whatever differences in the 7 constituencies across them exist about support levels for BJP Shiv Sena here or for DMK, ADMK in Tamil Nadu, those differences the socio-economic differences are already captured by the past data. And today what we are doing is kind of seeing a level of movement. So our model is like that the level uniformly across these 7 will go up or go down. It's very crude model, and that is why at the micro level, if I examine my results, it looks awful. Because at micro level it is very bad, but it is doing wonderfully well at the nationwide level.
But do you take your findings and then recalibrate it?
Yeah, but I do post facto analysis and recalibrate my model. That's what your question is, right? Yeah, but there is very little scope of doing anything different. Over 17 years I have pondered it a lot. I have done post facto analysis, done analysis when we have got it wrong. I have looked at when we have got it right, why is it right? But till now I have not been able to fine tune it tremendously. Each time we have to do some adjustments, like for Vidhan Sabha poll here, for so many years BJP Shiv Sena have been together. Now they have split. Now I have no past data. How do I do? Okay. So then political judgment and talking to a few people, something we have to do. So this making and breaking of alliances is one problem for me. There is also delimitation. That creates a problem for me. So we have challenges each time. So I don't have a ready-made software that the TV station can run. Fortunately, they need to call me every time.
Delimitation had an interesting word associated with it in America.
Yeah.
Gerrymandering.
Yeah. But for gerrymandering, you should have a strong sense of which way people are voting. In India, even if they want to and are able to do gerrymandering, I don't think they will be able to do. So they do, to some extent they do. In Delhi, for example, each of the 70 constituencies, there will be a Jhuggi Jhopdi cluster. There is no constituency where there is none. There is some amount of gerrymandering, but...
We have a few more minutes to go, but Doctor, there is one other area completely unrelated to everything we've talked about, but entirely related to your own background, which I want to bring in, and it has a lot to do with Moneylife. And that has to do with, you know, investment and investment modeling, and, you know, there is this whole huge new area called algorithmic trading and high frequency trading and so on and so forth. Now, when I was doing my little prep for you for this session, I saw things like martingales there, and I saw things like Markov chains there, and I saw them in the context of the work that you do for polling, but I also saw them in the context of this high frequency trading modeling and, you know, algorithmic trading modeling. Now, one of the things that it certainly gets me worried as an individual, not that I invest very much, that is the market now permanently stacked in the favor of these, you know, creatures, because they are not human anymore. This is some hotshot nuclear scientist who's come up with an algorithm, and that algorithm can flip a transaction around a zillion times in 1 nanosecond. So does it mean that the ordinary investor for all time to come must lie back and, you know, accept its perdition, or is there a dodge in this, and will it catch up? I think maybe you want to talk about what is this? How does this algorithmic trading actually work? Because we read about it, but I don't think most of us really get what it is.
So, I am very skeptical about the algorithmic trading, and that it will work always and so on and so forth. For the simple reason that the nuclear scientist or a physicist will come in, and only when the model is there. But the model and the reality gap is very much there, which they don't appreciate. And in fact, the various crashes in the Wall Street in the last 20 years have been attributed to this army of physicists. They are not really nuclear scientists, but a large number of physics PhDs who are great in quants coming and doing this. And the problem is that in physics, when they have a model, they know exactly the system works this way under all circumstances, whereas that is not the case in the real situation.
To be fair, in physics they fudge as well. So whenever in quantum mechanics they can't get it right, they just change the parameter and try to make it fit, in, particularly in string theory.
Yeah, maybe. I have not studied that, but I think I think that what may happen is that they may be right, they may be making tons of money large number of times, but there will be times when they will be hit for a huge sum, and there is a selective reporting bias. You get to only hear the success stories. Some houses which were doing algorithmic trading and got wiped out, you don't hear about them. So it's I don't think individual investors need to be worried about it, because there is a...
Sir, I like to, yes sir. I like to appreciate with the accuracy you have been doing the thing. Of late the accuracy is very good. The error is as good as negligible. Coming to the point of A and B, say 4852 we made a table. But that only doesn't come in the play, because you see there are other factors in the locality, this, that. But how well you are accurate, I am not able to judge. So it is more intricacy than just a simple calculation of 4,000.
No, it's the calculation of 4,000 comes assuming that I have picked 4,000 random now. Okay? And that is the crux. Let me also add here that the methodology that I am adopting is when I want a nationwide answer. If someone wants and engages me and I am interested and I get engaged to do a prediction for one particular constituency, okay, on behalf of a party, individual, I will not do that, but if I do, then I will work very differently, okay? Because then there is a lot more of the ground reality one can capture, okay, by talking to experts in various domains of life, and then decide on a sampling frame and so on and so forth. So I will do something very differently if I were to do in one constituency. But if I have to do nationwide, just blindly sitting in Rajpura Road office of CSDS, me and Yogendra in his room, drawing up a sample list and saying just you have to do this, that's all. That is good enough. Then I don't have to. Then what we do is, we don't even apply our mind to our own locality. Okay, we simply do a blind sampling that. But if I were to do in one constituency, I will do it very different.
So a lot of churning is a lot of churning has already been done. I wanted to ask about what is your prediction about the Delhi results?
So based on the last sample that we did for headlines today, I had the data for headlines today. The survey was done between 2 and 6. We had seen that AAP is giving a tough fight to BJP. They were only about 4 percentage points behind BJP at that point of time. 40% for BJP and 36 for AAP. But the candidates were not known. Kiran Bedi had not entered. Various other drama which has happened last few days had not happened. So I don't know what is the picture today, and I certainly don't know what is going to be the picture on 7.
Dr. Tripathi, right there.
Just to add to Ajit Ranade's statistics of type 1 and type 2 errors, in Bangalore we did an experiment across 10 polling booths.
Yeah.
And polling booths approximately has 1,200 voters. And we found that 70% of the listed voters could not be found on the ground. And we did then the other way around, which is that we looked at around that polling booth, within 2 square kilometer area. And 70% of people living there could not be found, on the electoral roll. Now, if this is the kind of representation of this, or misrepresentation in your sampling frame, first of all, this may be a very peculiar thing of Bangalore, because we did only in 10 polling booths, so it may not be representative nationwide. Have you done something to try and understand how accurate is your sampling frame with respect to the real universe that you're trying to do? Question 1. Question 2, which is more important, but this is only leading up to that question, is that if this proportion were to come down from 70 to 60 to 50 to 40, right? What effect will it have on the accuracy of your prediction? Have you tried to simulate that?
Firstly, I say that the errors in the electoral rolls have no impact on our accuracy, because it may not be the true representative, but that is the representative which will be thrown up by an election based on that voters list. So I don't see the error creeping up into our prediction because of the voters list is wrong. People who should not have been there are there. Well, if they want to vote, they can go and vote. I or you cannot prevent them, number 1. Those who should have been there, their names are not there, well, they cannot go and vote anyway. So, while the people who get elected based on a faulty voters list should not have been elected, that I will grant. But that will not impact my accuracy.
Correct.
Secondly, let me add that actually we talked about raw data sharing, etc. Raw data also doesn't belong to me, and the sampling frame design, I was associated with CSDS in the early years, and based on that we had worked out. Now they continue to use that. Formally or contractually, I have nothing to do with the sampling part. The contractual, etc. would be, they will provide me data and I have to interpret. So because of my past relationship with them, and I know that they are continuing to use that framework, I would be very hesitant to work with the agency if I don't know what they are doing.
I think we need to wind this down, but there is something that
tips.
I just wanted to say that, I guess, at least speaking for myself, the wonderful thing is that the analogies from opinion polling for political reasons and any kind of consumer research, any kind of market research, any kind of media research, actually it's a complete point-to-point correspondence. So not only does this clarify things personally for me in the context of how to make sense of what we read or hear from the polls, in many ways it has been very insightful about the life that I inhabit as a marketing and media person. So from me, and I think speaking for a very, very distinguished audience here today, I mean an extraordinarily powerful audience, I want to say thank you very much, and a really, really big round of applause.
I appreciate